Hello, I'm Elaine Willman, and I've been a federal Indian policy researcher for 30 years, written a couple of books, lived on 3 separate Indian reservations for the past 30 years. I am Indian. My mother and grandmother were enrolled Cherokee. I have their enrollment numbers, and my husband is Shoshone, a direct descendant of Sacagawea's adopted son Basil. I've had, and my husband and my family have had, a lifetime affection and respect for all things American Indian history and culture and everything. Just grown up that way. And so I've had to sort some things through while researching federal Indian policy. And the very first thing I had to sort through was the separation of my respect for American Indian families and culture and all of that, which is separate from government decisions. And that's what federal Indian policy is. It's government decisions that affect tribal families very seriously and affect other people that live on reservations, affect all of us, these government decisions. The one I'm going to speak about tonight is the Indian Child Welfare Act that Congress provided in 1978. And as is often the case, Congress will have good intentions, and statutes and acts will have great ideas languaged into the statute. But the reality out on the ground on reservations can be quite different. And in the case of the Indian Child Welfare Act of '78, which is now 40 years old, the act has been used more as a weapon against tribal families than it has been as a tool, as it was intended by Congress. The Indian Child Welfare Act contains 2 features. One transfers the parental rights of all enrolled tribal members. It transfers those parental rights to the tribal government itself. And it tells the tribal government, you have control of you have the parental rights of all enrollable children 18 years and under. So if there's an enrollable child anywhere in the country and a tribal government is interested in that child, they can initiate under the ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, an action to bring that child to the reservation or do what they will with that child. Another part of the ICWA is that the act places the tribal government's best interest as the priority. The act is written in the best interest of a tribal government. There is no interest of the child. The best interest of the child is not a factor in the Indian Child Welfare Act. Now, when it works well, it helps dysfunctional families. There may be tribal families where there's some addiction in the home, or there's some abuse in the home, where a child is truly endangered. And the act is a wonderful tool to rescue that child, place that child temporarily, and then the act requires and facilitates family reunification. The abusive parent or the drug-addicted parent gets treatment, hopefully, and things get better, and a reunification plan is put together and the family is made whole. Those are the good pieces of the Indian Child Welfare Act. But that is not the way it has worked for 40 years. That is not the way it has worked at all. I have worked with families on 3 separate reservations, and I've been contacted by tribal families from all over the country when, for no apparent reason, no wrongdoing by a parent, their child is removed from the home. I will give an example on the reservation where I currently live, and I'm not going to name tribes and I'm not going to name reservations, nor am I going to name tribal families, because this is a very dangerous and controversial issue that is getting a lot of legal scrutiny now, as it really needs. But within the reservation where I currently live, there are cases where family members have disagreed with a tribal government decision. And a few days later, we'll get a knock on the door from the Tribal Child Protective Services. And the parent is informed, you're a bad parent. We're taking your child. I'm currently working with 10 families on the reservation where I currently live. And these parents have not only lost their children, they don't know where they are. They cannot even visit. One family in particular has lost 3 girls. And they have not seen those 3 girls, nor know where they are in almost 3 years. This is the power of the Indian Child Welfare Act when wielded by a tribal government that bullies its tribal families. Or perhaps there are child protective service agencies on various reservations. Perhaps their families are doing fine, but the caseload is down. And perhaps in order to get funding for the following year, they need to build the caseload. So at the drop of a hat, tribal families can be placed at risk of losing their children to build little temporary caseloads to secure additional funding. This is what happens when Congress gives a tribal government the power of parenting and removes it from enrolled tribal members and allows that tribal government to then set up all these child services programs, but in order to keep the funding going, they have to have the children. Now again, there are occasions where children legitimately are in harm's way and the tribal government has a duty and follows through by rescuing the child. It isn't all bad, but it is largely harmful and very destructive to tribal families. I'm going to interview this evening one such tribal family, and I've been working with this family for about a year by phone and email and communications, and the story breaks my heart to a point where I think it's time to surface this parent's issue publicly. And so the next segment that you see is going to be an interview with a tribal family member. The father is a former tribal chief of police. The father is ex-military, served in the armed forces, incurred some PTSD in that capacity. The father is super dad, wonderful father, and has gone through a 9-year hell that we're going to talk about and expose. So stay with us, we'll be right back. Hello again, I am Elaine Wellman, and with me this evening in a lovely home in an undisclosed location in the Northwest is Eric Brewer. And I need to tell the viewers that Eric is probably one of the most courageous people I know, and probably the most deeply rooted father I know. I've been communicating with Eric and his family, with his wife Jessica and their children, for a little over a year. Eric lived on one side of the country, I lived on another, and we've finally been able to meet in person. And this is Eric's first time in front of a camera, right?
It is.
Yeah. And so that's where the courage comes from, and I'm just delighted that we can have this conversation, because Eric has been through a hell that few American families ever go through. And his case typifies some of the most painful aspects of the Indian Child Welfare Act. And by that I mean, we're going to talk this evening about a little girl born in 2008, and her older brother, who was about 4, Justin. The baby girl was Samantha, born in 2008. And when that child was 3 months old, the mother was an enrolled Quileute tribal member and was an addict. And Eric, who has a past history of military service, tribal chief of police, great jobs, great family man, Eric did the right thing. Eric took his wife to the Quileute tribal rehab services for addiction recovery. And by doing the right thing, Eric's 3-month-old daughter Samantha and 4-year-old son Justin were removed from the house. It was 8 years of Eric being terrorized through tribal courts, terrorized through every kind of evaluations, run around. 8 years before he was able to get Justin back just last year. Justin is now 14. Gone from his father for 8 years. I met Justin this evening. He's brilliant. He's wonderful. And I'm so grateful that you fought the good fight and you got Justin back. He still does not have little Samantha back. Eric, tell them who has Samantha.
Well, my daughter's placed with a family.
You may need to speak a little louder.
My daughter's placed with a family in Cooley, tribal. Right now, I believe he's the vice chairman, but he's back and forth between chairman and vice chairman all the time. And that seems to be where the problem lies, is that because his political position with the tribe dictates the outcome of my particular case, because they have a want for my daughter. And they're bending and breaking all the laws and policies that pertain to ICWA and I really don't know what else to say.
Well, as I understand, they are currently the foster. They have guardianship.
They were awarded guardianship.
The foster family has guardianship of Samantha.
Correct.
And has since she was baby.
Well,
he was the tribal chairman at the time she was taken.
He was the tribal chairman at the time she was taken, and they just were within the last 3 years granted the actual guardianship. But they've been applying for guardianship since almost the day that Samantha was removed from my care and placed into their care.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I was brought into ICW by Margot Gilmore and explained to me that Tony and Norris Foster wished to adopt my daughter Samantha, and they felt that me being a single parent, because they were pushing for my divorce from my wife. The tribe, ICW, and all of them were pushing, saying that I'll never get my daughter back. Won't have my kids as long as I'm connected with my ex-wife, Shanna. Well, anyways, make a long story short, within the same month that I was due to have my daughter returned back to me, in accordance to the order that was at that time, I want to say it was in June of 2009, that same month, they all of a sudden the foster family fabricated false allegations against my 4-year-old son. And then later stretched it into where I was being investigated, and then everybody in my family was investigated. It just kept going from one person to the next in these big investigations, including by the FBI and the county sheriff's departments. And this isn't the first time the same foster family made the same false allegations against other families that had their children removed. Just prior to them doing it to my family and my children, as if they were baby shopping. And then when Sammy came into their home, I guess that's when they decided this is the one they wanted, because they'd already been through a whole handful of other kids there in the tribe. They had fabricated a story against my son at 4 years old, and then got him removed from where they could separate the two siblings. Had him removed from their home, placed into another home.
They didn't want Justin.
Didn't want Justin. They were only interested in Samantha. And Justin was a pawn in the whole thing, the same as all the rest of us were.
Let me stop you for a moment, because Justin was away from you under this program from his age 4 through 12 or 13?
From 4 to 12.
Yeah. And during that 8-year period that Justin was away, ages 4 to 12 or 13, this bright young boy who was removed from his father, was put through just countless evaluations.
Oh,
Can you talk a little bit about the hell that Justin was put through?
First off, they ran out and medicated him with Risperdal. So now my son has physical disorders also. He has developed breasts from the Risperdal, and they used the Risperdal along with regression therapy, which was in his case they were trying to plant memories rather than trying to find memories.
Oh my goodness!
And then, but all this that they've done to him to no avail on their attempt.
Yeah.
They were like trying to shoot fish in a barrel, but never could get a fish.
Yeah.
And when they couldn't do it with him, they started it with me. When they couldn't get fish through me, when they couldn't make the poo stick on the wall with me, they tried to make it stick with his mother, then his grandparents. It was just a never-ending cycle of keep throwing mud. They just kept throwing mud.
And they is the tribal court.
As the tribal court.
And the Child Protective Services.
And the Child Protective Services. And they're doing, and it's all being directed by the tribal council, which at the time is Tony Foster and his siblings, because they're all on different. We're on different seats at the time too. And
now here's another thing: you went through the same level of ongoing evaluations and ongoing court appearances. I've heard some of the audio of the names the judge had called you and the names. I've heard some of the audio transcripts of the court hearings that Eric has been put through, and you would never hear a judge on a bench speak to a parent the way you have been terrorized in that court. I mean terrorized and belittled and demeaned in that court. And yet, through all the evaluations, did they ever find you to be a bad parent?
Not at all, not ever, not even close. To the contrary.
Not the sexual evaluations, not psychological, nothing, ever.
They all actually, to the contrary, have all written to the opposite. They write to how perplexed they are to why my kids were ever removed from the start. They write recommendations even suggesting that my kids be returned immediately, and this is, so anyways, and it wasn't, that wasn't just found with just on my case. They even, like when they tried to make my son out to be a danger at the age of 4 years old. The same thing for him. Matter of fact, throughout the years of fighting for him, I've been able to get I've been able to get every single one of the psychologists and individuals that were working with my son off the case for at some point along the way. I'm fighting, I'm saying this can't be true. I don't see the proof in it. And well, anyways, at the end of each person, after they have their little run of money, I guess is what it is, they'll all stop and say, well, I was only writing this, my opinion, based on this person's opinion. It was all stemmed from so-and-so, so-and-so. And then they'd say, well, I no longer feel comfortable evaluating Justin. And they'd write this back to the tribe saying that, well, I can't give my opinion anymore. And I've been saying, well, you shouldn't have given your opinion from the start. Look at the damage it's caused. So anyways, I don't know if I'm coming across real clear on all that.
Well, you've been through hell, so don't even worry about it if you feel a little muddled, because I'm asking you about very painful things, Eric. Very painful things.
It is.
And I've seen the court records. I've seen the transcripts of and listened to the audio of many of the Quileute tribal court proceedings.
Right.
And it's quite painful. I don't know what their criteria is for judges or attorneys or whatnot, but I do know that it doesn't remotely resemble due process, free speech. It does not. It doesn't even consider biological parental rights. It's just the most bizarre court process I've ever seen, and we're going through this hell for 9 years, basically because the tribal chairman in 2008 loved your little 3-month-old daughter.
Right.
Won't give her back.
Right.
Runs the tribal court.
Right.
Runs the tribe.
Right.
And so, be damned. The Indian Child Welfare Act says the best interest of the tribal government. The people holding your child are the tribal government. And the best interest of the child, Samantha, was never a factor.
No.
The good news here is that you do have Justin back now, and I got to meet him this evening. And how that young man has survived the hells he went through in Potsdam, I will never know. But he's just bright and articulate and happy and settled in his home after being away from Dad for 8 years. And he's adjusted well in school?
Oh, since we moved away from Forks, he no longer has, he's getting A's and B's in school. He no longer has a chaperone like he had at the Forks. Because see, they labeled him so badly. My son had a full-time chaperone that followed him everywhere from each class to the bathroom. He was never alone. He always had a chaperone.
Well, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but what did they label this 4-year-old boy?
They said he was SAY, sexually active youth. Which,
oh my goodness.
Which never, there's not one document to the effect that validates that claim.
Yeah.
And then when we brought him to this school district, that was where that school district over there played the game with the tribe, because it's a local tribe, local school, and they play the game together. They're all in cahoots.
Yeah.
And then when we got over here, this school district over here is like, well, look, we've looked through his IEPs, we've been through all his records. There's nothing that validates this claim from this school. In other words, that school was collecting money too.
Yes.
On behalf of Justin.
Yes. Caseloads.
Caseloads, right? So that they all can get paid. And at the sacrifice of him and his future, right? Yeah.
And the biological parents.
Yeah. And since we've been here, it's been a total conversion. He's getting A's and B's. He actually gets up in the morning and wants to go to school. He no longer has to ride the short bus. He no longer has these chaperones. And he's flourishing.
He is.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw that.
Yeah.
It just comes through.
Yeah.
He is. There were other things. You lived over in Forks in the La Push area where the Quileute tribal reservation and government is, and where Samantha remains.
Right.
And I understand that your family was bullied badly.
Oh, badly.
And terrorized badly. I want you to talk a little bit about that, and then I want to tell me about that time where the tribal police chased your car off the reservation and what happened then. So first talk about the kind of bullying your family went through and why you found it necessary to leave. And then tell me about that car chase.
Well, I guess we decided after 3 years, I was ordered to move. We were first living in Chehalis for a long time. I had moved away from Forks, and then we were living in Chehalis, and then the tribe finally started letting me see my daughter, and they with the intent to a reunification.
They actually started that
right.
once?
They started it, and then but within 3 months of doing the supervised visits and the non-supervised visits and the family therapy visits, the judge then, Callgrove, still judge now, made it real clear that she had no intentions to reunite Sammy, but we're going to still do all these visits and everything. And anyways, it was a total, can't even begin to explain to you the emotion that's involved.
That they put you through? Letting you think there might be reunification?
Right, and then they take it away.
Yeah.
And then it made it real clear.
Because the prosecutors were not about to let Samantha go.
No, they made it real clear they weren't going to, as a matter of fact. And then I'm sorry.
No,
That's all right.
I perfectly understand. Can you talk about when the tribal police chased you because it caused a very serious accident.
Yeah, it did. I fought for, this was before the Judge Colgrove, this is when Judge Doherty was on the case. And we fought really hard with by this time I'd been through so many different attorneys because they all just keep coming to the conclusion their hands are tied. There's no laws being followed, there's nothing they can do, and they don't feel good about taking what little bit of money that I can afford to give them.
Yeah.
So their ethics would be like, well, I'm sorry, I can't really help you. We've tried for years and we're getting nowhere. So anyways, this one particular lawyer, Larry King, we fought really hard to get this licensed mental health counselor on to attend the visits. Because they were pencil whipping these visits saying that, oh, the child doesn't recognize them as a father, there's no affection, all the things they would say, which was far from the truth. My kids would run to me crying saying, where are you? I'm in the windows watching for you, Dad. Where are you at? And then they peel them away and end my visits because of that would be said by my son or something. And then, anyways, to make a long story short, April Thompson was the driver of the automobile and the person that we were speaking of.
In the tribal police car?
No, she was driving the car that I was in, and she was the licensed mental health counselor that we fought to get on the case to sit in on these visits, so they no longer could lie about how the visits are going. And then they never did let her in. We went to like 3 visits together, right? Which she's traveling, and I'm paying for all this. This is a big bunch of money out of my pocket. And then she would travel all the way to La Push from Olympia, actually Chehalis. They wouldn't allow her in, but they'd bring, I'd go back with my visit if it was going to happen that day. Sometimes it never it wouldn't happen. We would just get there and nobody would show up. And then that particular day, April said, you know what? I'm going to have something written up, a letter that she had composed for the Indian Child Protective Team, the IEP team or whatever they call them. Because she wants to complain to them about how they're not following this court order. She's supposed to be allowed in here to do her job, and they're not allowing it to happen. This is the 3rd time out to do this, and she kind of predicted it was going to happen again. So she prepared this letter in advance, knowing that they were meeting that day. And so we left from that visit because they pulled the same stuff. They didn't allow her in, and they ended my visits early because of something my son might have said. I can't recall exactly to this moment. Emotional, so I had to come and drive to leave. But so we drive down to the lower part of the village to drop off these letters to this group of people that sits on this CPT team, Child Protective Team, and to let them know what's going on, you know. And then as we did that, they called the police department, and they swarmed all around us and were bullying us and really making us, it was either we're going to get arrested or we need to leave now.
They didn't want you to deliver that letter?
Right, and then so we left kind of expeditedly and aggressively, and they followed behind us. There was about 4 of them. I guess it was 4 of them that followed us all the way off the reservation, all the way, well beyond their jurisdiction, and then
chasing you?
Chasing us, and then we were speeding. That's why I had asked her to slow down. And she told me that this is how she drives, and for me to be quiet. And that's pretty much how it went. And then a few minutes later, we slid off the road, and I came to. I ended up with a traumatic brain injury, broken spinal processes, and crushed vertebrae. But more importantly, just the traumatic brain injury with the trauma that I've already been through with everything else.
The military,
Right, just created I don't know how to talk like my doctors do, but...
No, but Eric, this is why I want your story and want to talk to you, because you have overcome and survived all of this. Personal injury in the military, personal injury in a car wreck when you're being chased by tribal police, loss of 2 of your children. You with these injuries, you have still fought every single day to have your children back. You're halfway there. You have Justin, but you don't have Samantha.
They gave me Justin to appease me, to make as leverage to it was never said blatantly, but I've always been let know that, hey, here's your son, go about your life. You're never gonna get your daughter. You continue right for your daughter, we'll always have the ability to take your son, which is part of the, to get at least some distance
So they
between.
couldn't get Justin again?
They can go to the end of the world to get him if they want to.
That's right, until he's 18.
Until he's
That's
18,
right.
and they made it real clear to me that's what they can and would do.
To a certain extent, that's a risk you take by coming on camera.
Right, oh yeah, it absolutely is, and it weighs heavy, weighs real heavy.
But this video is going to go public. It's going to go to some very prestigious agencies that are deeply concerned about the Indian Child Welfare Act. Hopefully, this video is going to bring you some help. You some help, Justin some help, Samantha some help. Hopefully, this video is going to get heard. And I hope some congressmen, I hope we can get this to some congressmen.
I've been in contact with all, so
I
many.
know, I know, but it takes a lot of noise. It takes a lot of noise. Tribal members seldom have the courage to speak up for themselves because they do so with retribution, with great risk. And so that's why I keep talking about your courage. One other point, and that is, I think within the first couple of years, as I recall, you filed for custody, or you went into federal court. You tried to get it out of tribal court to get Samantha back in federal court.
Right.
Did federal court tell you you had to, this was after you'd been trying to recover her for a couple of years, wasn't
Right, it was after a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then I had to resort to that because I was getting nowhere in tribal court.
And what did federal court tell you?
I had the attention of federal court for about 9 months, which was a miracle by itself because first off, I don't speak attorney on any level. I barely speak English well enough to communicate with anyone. I had their attention for 9 months, and I was able to make a lot of filings. They tried right out and hired like 6 really big wig Seattle attorneys that were fighting me. Because I was doing it, was it called pro se or whatever?
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying to make it go. Just needed someone's ear. I needed the ear of a federal judge, and I was hoping that he would be able to set aside some of because they only give you so many errors doing it pro se. You get 1 or 2 at best, and after that they kick it out. Well, they kicked mine out under prejudice because where I should have put response. Because I just copy and paste from my thing, and then I copy and paste and forgot to change it from a motion to a response.
So it got kicked out on some little technical procedure there.
Right.
Did they also tell you that you had not exhausted tribal remedies?
I believe they told me that I needed to continue
in tribal court.
Yeah, they did. It was
you've been begging tribal court to give your daughter back.
Right, and that's what and that was at the time when tribal court told me flat out that they were laughing at me in court. This is ICW telling me that they'll keep my kids until they're 18, and they almost have for the most part with my son, and at this point I don't know with my daughter. I mean,
I've heard the judge call you an idiot.
Oh yeah. Call
you stupid.
Yep.
Tell you to shut up.
If I had kept my mouth shut years ago, I'd have had my kids back years ago.
Which is BS.
Right.
Yeah.
Telling me I'm my own worst enemy.
The audio tapes out of this tribal court are frightening, really frightening.
And if I were to say anything in my own defense at any time at all, I just get thrown out of the courtroom, or if I'm hearing my phone, they just hang up on me.
But here's another good news, and this is what I would want viewers, especially those who can help you, to know. With your military training, your law enforcement training, you knew to keep records.
Oh, I did.
You have all the records.
I have everything.
You have everything. You have audio transcripts, audio and documents.
I used to carry a pocket recorder until that was one of the things they put a gag order on me, telling me I could no longer do that. I've had about 5 different gag orders placed on me. I've been held in contempt of court, charged but never fined or anything. I've been, all because I went to another court, a Kulikwon tribal court, which was a panel of 8 judges that actually awarded me my children. And then I tried to take that order and I filed it with Colum County as a foreign judgment order, and they accepted it. They assigned me 2 sheriffs and said, meet me out at the Forks Police Department and we'll go pick up your children with you. And we went to go do that. Well, then the tribe said, no, no, no. He's trying to abscond with his 2 children, utilizing a real elaborate plan, using the Forks City Attorney at the time, and the police department, and the sheriff's department, and a foreign judgment order that I already had. And so after that they put a 2-year restraining order on me. I wasn't allowed to see either of my kids for 2 years, and I followed my attorney's advice, and my attorney attended this hearing at the Nisqually tribe with these 8 other judges, and this is what they did to me over that.
Yeah. It's just so disturbing. You're an American citizen.
Don't feel like it.
No, I'm sure you don't. And I'm going to suggest that there's an awful lot of tribal families who have lost their children who don't feel like American citizens either. And one of the things that most viewers and most people across the country do not understand is that tribal members have no civil rights. They have no parental rights. They do not have the 14th Amendment. They do not have free speech. Tribal members are held at the mercy of a form of government that doesn't remotely resemble the American government, and yet they're American citizens.
Right.
And this Indian Child Welfare Act is the poster child for all things evil. It truly is. I'm hoping that congressmen, legal counsel, anyone that hears this video, and there's some specific associations I will be sending this to, that they will contact me via email. My email is Toppin, small letters, T as in Tom, O-P-P-I-N, Toppin at AOL.com. They can contact me. We're going to find you help. And we're going to get that reunification and Samantha back. Now there's one goofy little thing you told me, which may be just, it may be just some rumor, legend, myth, but you told me one of the reasons Samantha is such a prize and was the one the tribal chairman wanted was because of her blue eyes. Would you talk about that? I did not understand that.
Well, I thought it was a myth and a kind of a running joke for the longest time. When I first moved to La Push, the Cooley Reservation, it was a big thing where, like...
Because you have blue eyes.
Right,
yeah.
And so I had just moved there. I didn't know anybody really, but I was like this big attraction to all these younger women that were there, and they were all... it was so indifferent. But then I've learned later that it's not just with the Coolies that way, that they hold a blue-eyed baby, especially a blue-eyed Indian baby, and a higher prize. And then like a lot of Polynesian people would do the same thing. It was just a thing that came to be, and
so you had a lot of ladies very interested in you because of your blue eyes.
For years and years down there, and then so
it's strange.
It is very strange, and I feel really awkwardly uncomfortable even trying to talk about it, because to me I still have a hard time believing that that's part of it.
But Samantha has truly, blue eyes.
Oh, the most brilliant blue eyes in the world, and she was a gorgeous little baby, and still is today. Now here's something else too. One of the things that has been going on for 9 years is this back and forth, like, we're gonna set up maybe some visitation, and then they pull the rug. Right. Maybe some visitation and pull the rug. And they say, well, the tribal government and all of their services, they have the facilities to do the therapy, do the reunification, do the healing, and yet none of this has ever come about in 9 years. Right.
You have been bullied out of the area and protecting your son Justin by moving away from the area. I think it needs to be known that where you currently live are some of the best services available for Samantha to be just delivered to you, and the reunification and any therapy, any services that child needs are far superior where you currently live than anything that tribe could offer.
Oh,
is that true?
That is true.
That's what I thought.
The Nisqually tribe, the tribal chairman at the time, sent letters to the Cooley tribe saying that they have an interest in these children because my dad is enrolled in Nisqually. So technically by law, they were supposed to include Nisqually in this whole mess, but they've avoided and evaded that with like the plague. And usually what ended up happening is they'd hold things in the air, and I'd submit things to the court, and the court would hold it up and say, is anyone else interested in hearing this? And then, of course, there's nobody else in the room other than me and my attorney that were interested in having this heard. They would just put it to a vote and it'd throw it off to the wayside. So it was like, it was so overwhelming, and I just can't even begin it really changed my whole dynamics on everything, my whole belief system on everything. I believed in the so-called, what I fought for in the military. I believed that when I got into law enforcement, this is where I thought my heart was, and I was going to do well, and not well by me, but well by others. That was all I wanted. And then I learned gradually that all this is dictated and influenced by tribal government, meaning the tribal, whoever's sitting on council at the time determines really what goes on, whatever job you got with the tribe. So.
And runs not just the council and not just all the services, but the courts.
Oh, they run it. They run everything.
And law enforcement.
Law enforcement
there's
side.
No check and balance.
There's no checks and balances.
No.
And you start, and that's when I started first, even before I even had this stuff happen to me. That's why I got out of law enforcement, because it was turning my stomach. It was like, this is so different from what I thought it would be. Here I got my own SOP, but I'm being told, don't look at that, do what I'm telling you. And so it's like.
There's another thing too that I had mentioned in my introductory remarks, and I want to ask you about it because I know that this is occurring frequently on the reservation where I currently live, and I'm hearing that it is occurring in many reservations, and that is the tribal governments that get funding from the Department of Health and Human Services or Education. All those annual fundings go out to these tribal facilities and organizations, but they have to have a caseload.
Right.
And if they don't have a caseload, there is a tendency to trump them up. And on the reservation where I live, in the most recent 4 or 5 years, 400 children have been taken about the time they need to re-up for more funding. Up to, over a period of years, there have been numerous children just temporarily taken or permanently taken to build the caseload to request more funding to keep the money rolling in, when they then use those very same services to terrorize the families.
And then they always don't have money when it comes to time for any kind of real services. They always say we don't have the funding for it. In court, anyways. And then the judge is saying to them, well, if you don't have the funding for it, just let me know and I'll help you fight for more funding. So you see what I mean? Where does a judge come into play on this? So, make a long story short, and this is all on record, so at least if you ever get it from the Cooley's, that's exactly what they did in our case. The year that they took my children, all the years prior, I want to say it was going on probably 30 years prior to them taking my kids, them having this Indian Child Welfare program on their own reservation, and at the highest number they ever had was 7 kids. 7 families involved in ICW, 7 cases.
Per year.
That was the maximum. Usually it was 7 or lower. And that particular year, Mary Hoppe was about to lose her grant funding for her position with the tribe, which is ahead of this whole program, this whole department, this whole area that gets us all, greases the wheels for all the other ones. She was about to lose her. She was about to be dismissed from the tribe. Well, all of a sudden, mysteriously, the tribe went from 7 being the most to 47 in that 1 year, and
children removed from homes for a case.
Some families were this girlfriend, this boyfriend lived in the same home. They both had their own children from different spouses. But they would take the custody of this guy's son and give it to the girlfriend. I'm leaving names out right now, and I wish I could tell you until I get them to say that it's okay. I won't. But anyways, I know their stories because I used to hold public meetings prior to my head injury and stuff. And at the time I had 50 different proxies. I had the proxy for 50 other families to speak in their behalf. When I went to
struggling with all
this. And so I know a lot of their stories, and it was just this big, huge roar of a flame up of the ICW snatching kids that year. And
Wow.
and that's how, and it all was about the funding. It was about keeping Hoppa in her job.
Yeah.
It was about keeping ICW well stocked.
Yeah.
In a little tribe like the Quileute, it actually turns into real money because they don't use the money as it's assigned. You know, the money they receive, sure, it's allotted in these areas and these departments.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that they're always broke in these departments. And
Yeah, the money is used for
so
whatever
the money's
they want.
being pulled from everywhere by the tribal
That's
council.
happening. That's happened on all 3 reservations where I
Right,
live.
and there's never nothing that comes
Money
of anywhere.
targeted for housing, money targeted for health, kind of evaporates and nobody knows
Nobody knows where it goes.
There's no auditing,
no
no
accountability,
oversight.
no nothing.
Those are all taxpayer dollars
Right,
too.
right, they're all tax
They
dollars.
are. They are. I just cannot tell you how hard I'm going to work to help you have your child back. Samantha's 9 now, 9, 10, about 9 years old.
9.
Yeah. And where you lost Justin for 8 years, you've lost Samantha for 9 years.
Yeah.
You've been told you'll never see her till she's 18. There are families that are struggling, not just on the Quileute reservation. We're only naming them
Right.
because of your story,
Right.
and because your story is so horrific. Somebody needs to get in there
In the midst
and
of all
clean
this,
house.
I was fighting, trying to tell the story. Make a long story short, a real close friend of mine, My Gene Jackson, his son, My Gene Jr. Jackson, he killed himself in Mary Hoppa's home. The tribe's social and mental health counselor that was behind this big removal of kids.
Yeah.
She had custody of baby Gene, and he killed himself in her home. And she's supposed to be the tribe's mental health specialist, the go-to person for all these kids. Well, anyways, I went to the state of Washington. I've been everywhere. The ombudsman, all of them. I make a mess out of their names and their organizations, but I contacted them all. And
you've been relentless trying to help her back.
And then the only thing they could tell me is that they can't intervene because of the tribal sovereignty. And
there are very, very serious problems on numerous reservations that are all stimulated by using the Indian Child Welfare Act not as a tool to help dysfunctional families or save abused children, but as a weapon to secure more money using children as targets and taking them from their parents. It is vicious what is going across the country. So I really do hope, and I thank you again for being courageous to come on camera, because so many families that I work with are terrified to even, and they can't talk, they can't speak up with their own tribal governments, and they're terrified to say anything about it, and they are just longing for children removed, and they don't even know where they are. And this is happening in the good old United States, and it needs to stop.
At the expense of taxpayers' dollars.
At the expense of, exactly.
This money's being misappropriated.
We're the ones making it possible. Our American taxpayers that are kicking it, not by choice, of course.
No, it's they're unknowing. They don't have a clue. They don't even know.
But it has to stop. Hey, Eric, I just want to thank you. I want to give you a hug. And I want you to never ever give up.
I'll never give up.
And I won't either. I will not either. You have the blessing of having such a wonderful life partner, and you have Justin home, and you have other lovely children in the family. I don't know of a father who has longed or worked harder to be a fine father than you, and who's gone through all that scrutiny, and they've never been able to say, "Oh, he's a bad parent."
Not even after my head injury. They ran out right after they learned
Just
that I got a traumatic brain injury. The tribe ran out and do another 2 or 3 evaluations, and they can't get no one to say that I'm a bad parent on any level, or even or have any concerns of any kind.
We are on the record 14G0009. This is in re the guardianship of Samantha Brewer. He's had several of these evaluations, and they always come up the same. He's fine. He doesn't need any more services. He's gone through all of the services. Everything is fine. So that's why I'm annoyed.
I can understand, but nonetheless, Your Honor, the pattern in this case, aside from whether or not Mr. Brewer is fine, the pattern in this case has been from the very beginning. short periods of effort from Mr. Brewer to engage his children, followed by long periods of him being disengaged.
Actually, no, that's not true. That's not true.
Completely true, Your Honor.
No, absolutely not true.
This is another example, just choosing to meet 7 or 8 hours away and eliminating the opportunity for sibling visits and this relationship developing is they are making choices that are limiting the court's ability and, quite frankly, limiting any ability to have visitation. And the person who suffers at the end of the day is not Eric, and it's not the Fosters, it's not the court, it's Samantha. And one thing that this report from Forest Community Hospital shows is that Samantha is the one that feels the stress of the
Of course she does, because she doesn't know her father, because on both sides of the aisle, nobody has allowed this visitation to occur, ever. Ever. She doesn't know her dad at all, because nobody has allowed any kind of a relationship at all. None. And my intention has never been to take this child from the Fosters, ever. It's just been to allow her to have some sort of a relationship with her biological family, because every evaluation has said that there is nothing wrong with her father. Every single evaluation has said that. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He has jumped through every single hoop. And it's sick and sad. So I absolutely 100% disagree with you. 100%. And it's a shame. It is a shame. It is a shame, shame, shame. You know, had been here for 3 years fighting to see his kid.
With all due respect, Your Honor, it's not an accident, and it's not a coincidence.
Oh, absolutely it's not. Absolutely it's not.
Because he chose to be there. And
Absolutely it's not.
it's also not an accident, it's not a coincidence that he had physical time visitation. He had the supervisory report.
Do you know what it's like to find housing out here? Do you know what it's like to find jobs out here?
I do, Your Honor, I was out there before.
Okay. It's very, very difficult. I don't even want to have this conversation anymore. The bottom line is he's not here anymore. It is what it is. And you're right. It was a choice. It is what it is. I don't have anything else to say. But I don't agree with anything that you're saying right now. Like I said, he's jumped through every hoop under the sun. I don't agree with what the counselor has said. I also don't agree with what's happened in this case. I don't think that your clients have made any kind of effort to allow any sort of relationship at all. And I think that's sad, because, you know, there's no reason why she couldn't have had some sort of relationship with her biological father.
And so...
Well, the day will come when you and Samantha will join the family, and she's going to be so proud that her dad worked so hard to have her. And, you know, all of us are right with you. We will be working on this. I thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening. If you hear this, again, if you're an attorney and can help, my email is toppin, Toppin, at AOL.com. And if you're a congressman, please do something. Circulate this video to other congressmen. If you're tribal family members, please take heart that there are people all across this country that are keenly aware of the struggles you're going through because of the Indian Child Welfare Act. And we are going to get this information out loud and now, and bring Samantha home. So thank you again, Eric, and thank you for watching.